Welcome to episode 2 of Recipe to Success, the podcast where we sit down with key individuals in the hospitality industry to learn more about their journey and their success story. Today I sit down with a young entrepreneur, someone I have the honor to call one of my friends. He is the owner of a Turkish restaurant based in Stoke Newington, one of the best Turkish restaurants I've ever been to, and I constantly go there. I'm not just saying that because he's here, but he's also involved in other businesses, but his main focus is the hospitality, which is why I've brought him on today. I think him being so young and being in the industry that he is in, it will be exciting to kind of learn more about his journey and how he's got to where he has today. So Huseyin, thank you so much for coming down. For those people that don't know who you are and don't know about Testi and the restaurant, why don't you give them a little bit of an intro about the restaurant and who you are as a person?
Hello Humza, and first of all, thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. For those of you that don't know me, I own a restaurant called Testi in Stoke Newington. We've been about for over 15 years. It's a family-run restaurant. I've taken over from my father. I've been running it for the last 5 years. As well as the restaurant, just before we got into the podcast, we had a little chat about my other businesses. I've got a property investment business, which I'm, focusing on at the minute. But the restaurant is the main focus. And we just mentioned about doing a refurb in July. Bringing something new for the customers of Testi.
Cool. So I think for me, I actually don't genuinely remember how I first heard about the restaurant. But once I came there, because, me personally, people know this, like I love to go out to eat and I'm all about experience. But when I came to Testi, before I even knew you, I just found that the experience that you get there is so consistent. And I think maybe that kind of goes into the fact that it has been around for 15 years. And, nowadays businesses, they fail to last for like a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So what would you say was like the main thing that got you involved? Because your dad obviously was running it, and he was there for many years. Mm-hmm. You must have had a lot of pressure, like.
Yeah, I mean, as growing up, I actually started working in a restaurant when I was 11. I used to go after school on the weekends, just stay in the bar, help out a couple of hours there and then, and I kind of grew into it. Like the things that's done in the restaurant, like nobody had to say, you go and do this like that. I just automatically picked up because I grew up in it. Mm-hmm. Coming onto my secondary days when I was 13, 14, I was working after schools. I was working on the weekends. Just trying to learn as much as I can, because what my father always told me was, one day you're gonna take over the restaurant, and if you don't come and learn now, then you're not going to be able to run the restaurant when it's your time. So, growing up, my teenage years was just spent in the restaurant, on, as I said, weekends, weekdays. Whenever I can, I'll be working in different departments. So, a couple of months I'll be working as a waiter, a couple of months in the kitchen downstairs, a couple of months upstairs on the grill. I've just been working my way around the place until I mastered every single aspect of the restaurant. And what you've touched on there about being consistent with with the taste and with the service and stuff, that comes down to how strict we are in the restaurant in terms of standards. Our standards are very high, and we do a lot of work in the background to maintain it. Mm-hmm. I mean, even with the stuff that we buy, the vegetables, yourself, we go out there, we buy everything fresh ourselves. I pick every single tomato that comes into that restaurant. The same with the meat, the chicken. Everything that we get, everything that we source is sourced locally from vegetable markets, from meat markets, and I think that makes a lot of difference when it comes to the taste of the food, because of that freshness. Nothing is frozen in the restaurant. No meat, nothing is frozen. We do big cash and carries twice a week, including our vegetable and meat shopping, and they tend to go within 2 days. So. The reason why it's so consistent is because we're on the ball. I'm always in there. My father comes in to help whenever I need to. So we keep our standards high, and that obviously makes a difference on the food.
So you mentioned that you were involved in the restaurant at such a young age. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure all you can remember is the restaurant.
Yeah.
But do you think that is a part of the reason why it's lasted so long? Because there is a lot of Turkish restaurants in Stoke Newington. You know, those of you that haven't been to Stoke Newington, definitely check it out. It's an amazing area. There's so many options. Of course, Testi is our favourite. But, you know, of course, when customers have that many options, there has to be a reason why a brand is lasting for so long, you know? Because even nowadays, like, even some of the big brands, I don't know if you heard the other day, Jamie Oliver's restaurants have gone into administration, and a chef on that level, his restaurants are collapsing. It means anyone can collapse. Anyone can be a part of the economy like failing or whatever it is, because there could be loads of reasons within the restaurant industry, but something failed there, you know? But you guys have lasted so long, and although people that have been there, they know, okay, you've got that consistent food. When you tell them, you know what, everything's sourced locally, they appreciate it. But do you think for those that don't know about the restaurant, they wouldn't really know that? So why do you think that the restaurant has lasted so long?
I mean, the reason why the restaurant has lasted so long is it just comes back to what I was saying earlier on is, let's say, for example, I'll go on a 2-week break, I'll go on holiday, or, you know, I've got things to do. My father will come into play, so he will run the restaurant on his terms for that 2 weeks, and then when I'm back, then I'll run it back on my terms. But both of our terms are, you know, the standards are high. The way we both work, we work slightly differently, but our main focus is one thing, and that's just keeping our customers happy. And you know, I tell all my staff this. You know, I tell all the new people that start up in our place, don't serve anything that you won't eat to the customer. So I mean, we never have to throw food away because we don't cook from beforehand. Or let's say, you know, accidents happen. If something happens, if something spills over, it's fine. Just go tell the customer and just make a new one. But don't ever serve something that you wouldn't eat. And with our staff as well, you know, our chef, he's been with us for 8 years. Our head chef has been with us since we opened up, so 15, 16 years he's been, you know, working for us. And that's another reason why it's always consistent and why it's carrying on going, because the taste never changes. But in most restaurants you get a lot of staff turnover, so staff change in and out all the time. I mean, we get that as well, you know, you get waiters and stuff, they change quite often. But the main thing is our head chef, and he, as I said, he's been with us for 16 years since we opened up. And that has a lot of impact on the taste of the food, because he's the first person that the meat goes to. You know, he cuts the meat up, he marinates the meat, he gives it that flavour, and then the chef cooks it. Obviously, he adds on his touch as well. But where we both train them ourselves, you know, we train them to our standards, and they've been happily working with us for many years and many more years to come. That keeps it consistent, you know. And also what is in most restaurants, you know, I've got my property business, right? The property business is very passive, whereas the restaurant is the opposite. It's very hands-on. So with the restaurant, you know, we're always there. You know, customers know us, customers meet us. You don't really get that everywhere. You know, you go into restaurants, half the time you don't know who the owners are. And once you do build that relationship with the customer, you know, when they come back looking for you. You know, they look for that signal, that handshake, because they know who you are. So they trust you even more when it comes to food. And that's one of the main reasons why, you know, we've been going for many years.
Cool. So, I mean, you mentioned that it's funny because it definitely in the hospitality industry, especially within restaurants, staff turnover is a huge problem, you know. You train someone and then you replace them and then, you know, you have to keep that consistency. You've kept your chef for 16 years, something I didn't even know.
Yeah.
How has you or your father achieved that, you know? For those people that are struggling with staff and, you know, they do have that problem where staff is constantly changing, what do you think is so essential to that chef for him to stay happy and be, you know, loved where he is, and so that you get that end product as well where it's always consistent?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, we have a lot of high staff turnover as well, but our main staff is always there, like, you know, like the chef. And the reason why he's there is because, you know, everybody's different, everybody's got different lifestyles, and we do our best to, you know, suit our staff, especially, you know, someone like our head chef. So the way he works is he works in his own terms that we agree with, so he's happy and we're happy as well. Whereas if somebody else was to replace him, they might not be happy with the terms that he set. So I mean, you really got to understand your staff, and you really got to understand what they want, you know, if they want more breaks, or if they want to start at a certain time, if they want to be home by a certain time, because these things matters. You know, everybody's got family, everybody's got kids. But that's the main reason why he's stayed with us for many years. And you have to treat your staff right, you know. And once your staff sees that you're going somewhere in your business, they tag along with you because they felt like they've achieved something.
Yeah.
So once we won the award, we didn't win the award, the staff won the award, because it's their work, it's their hard work, and what's important is for them to recognize this. So you have to let them know that, you know, you appreciate their work and their efforts, and they're not just someone to do their job there. You know, it's a bit more personal.
So just to touch up on that, for those of people that don't know what award you won, just go into detail a little bit about the award that you recently won for Testi.
Yeah, we just won the award for the best kebab restaurant in North and West London in March from British Kebab Awards. And we actually came second last year, if you remember.
Yeah.
And we smashed it this year, and we got the first place.
You know, it's so funny because last year, unfortunately, they did come second. And I literally remember having that conversation with Huseyin and saying, you know what, bro, don't worry. Next year, you're going to come back and you're going to win. And he was on the same wavelength. You know, he was like, 100%, we're going to come back stronger. And I think to have that hunger, to have that never die attitude is so important, especially within hospitality, because there's so many restaurants that they peak. They're doing so well, and you know they're getting so many customers, and you know everyone's happy, and then all of a sudden the level just drops, and customers realize that, and you know it's very hard to almost save a failing business, but kind of when it's too late, if that makes sense. And I think that's one thing that I really, really love about you. Did you get that from your father, or do you think that's just something that you have always had?
I mean, it is obviously, as growing up, you know, my father, you know, he came here in 2003, and he's worked 2 years, no days off, just so he can make things happen. And what happened was we had restaurants in various parts of Turkey and Cyprus before he came here. But there was an economic crisis back in our country, and he went bankrupt. So he's lost it all. He left me, my mum and my sister back in Turkey for 2 years, so he can come here, make the money, set everything up, and then bring us here. And you know, you do pick it up without noticing, and like you know, you see it as growing up. You see your where's your dad? Oh, he's gone. He's away for 2 years because he wants to help us live a better life in the future, and that is what he's done. So I've got a lot of respect for that, for my father, in terms of, you know, what he's done for us, and he's still going. You know, I can't get him out of the restaurant. Like he loves it. It's his passion. Like he will change his clothes. He will make food for the customers. It's not because he needs to. He doesn't need to. We've got staff there to do it, but he loves it. It's his passion. He can't get his hands off it, and that hunger, that it does come from my father, and myself. I do a lot of self-development, as you know. I read a lot of books, and you know, with the mindset, it's got to be right. I think whatever you do in whatever business that you do, even in like personal stuff, like it's simple things like going to the gym, it all starts in your head. If you want to turn around and say, you know what, I'm gonna go gym 3 times a week from now on, but you're not all there, up and there in the head, you're not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. But once you tell yourself, I have to go gym 3 times a week, there's no ifs or buts. That's my priority. First thing in the morning, I'm going to go gym, get out the way, so there's no excuses. Then you will do it because you mentally prepare yourself for it. And that's the same thing with my business, and any business that I get into. It's just you have to get the mindset right before you step in.
100%. And I think it's nice that you actually shared that, because that's something I didn't even know, that you know your father just came here and you guys were living by yourself for 2 years. And I think it's so the generation that we are in, it's funny because people look at us, they probably look at both of us and think, you know what, you're young entrepreneurs, you guys are killing it, you guys are doing well, but they don't really understand some of the struggles that we go through, or where we've come from, or how much hard work it involves, and even to this day, like some of the hours that we're doing, you know. And so it's one of those things where you really have to always make sure your mindset is clear, you are very clear on your goals, and you are doing self-development, because without that, you know, you really have nothing. And that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. Yes, there is a focus on hospitality, because I think that's an industry where obviously I'm very focused in with my business, but also because it's an industry where a lot of the owners and the people behind the brands, they don't really step out there. They don't show too much about themselves, and people, their customers, don't really know who they are necessarily. Like you said, it's very rare where you go to a restaurant and you meet one of the owners or you have a conversation, for a number of reasons why that is. But so it's kind of cool that, you know what, you can kind of share your experience on self-development and things like that. What do you think's been, for you, one of the most important things for self-development, for being a young person, other than reading just books? Like, was there something that's really you're focused on?
Well, the main focus is the targets, you know, goal setting and stuff like that. Just basic things. I mean, if you, coming back to the example that I made with the gym, if you write down on a notepad saying I'm going to go gym 3 times this week, and you keep on looking at that writing before you sleep and when you wake up, you're going to do it. You know, it's going to be in your subconscious mind. It's going to keep on coming back to you. You know, I'm gonna. It's the promises that you make to yourself, and once you do make a promise to yourself and you keep the promise, then you do it again and again. It just gets stronger, you know. But if you don't, then it's got a negative effect, you know. If you do say something to yourself and you don't keep it, and then you make another promise to yourself, then you kind of find it okay not to keep it again. But whereas if you do, then it's like, you know what, I said this to myself, I have to do it. So in terms of what you've said, goal setting and, you know, writing your targets down has had a lot of effect and impact on the things that I've achieved.
Do you think this is more to do with entrepreneurship in general? Do you think going to the gym is very important for mindset and for achieving goals?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have some kind of exercise, even if it's like a 30-minute walk in the mornings. I go to the gym in the mornings. I like training in the morning because once it's out of the way, you can, you know, get on with your day, do all of your stuff. Plus, your body feels refreshed. You know, you go to the gym, you have a nice cold shower, you're ready to take on the day. Once you sweat in the morning, once you tackle that, you know, hard breathing, you know, lifting heavy weights, the rest of the day comes easy and it helps you have a good night's sleep. So I used to have problems with sleeping and I couldn't sleep. But going to the gym in the morning, it does tire you out. You know, you do get tired. Have a little bit of coffee afterwards, you're ready to go. But when it hits about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, you know, if you do stay up till that late, you just want to go to bed and have a nice sleep, have a read and go sleep. But whereas when you don't, your mind is still awake, your body's not tired. So yeah, I think definitely, you know, it's not necessarily going to the gym, but having some kind of sport activity in your life, especially in the mornings, it helps out a lot.
100%. I mean, me personally, like, I've had my own challenges with the gym. I think, when I was young, when I was like really young, when I was like 17, 18, 19, I used to love going to the gym. I was honestly addicted to the gym. And it wasn't because of just how your body looks and things like that, because I wasn't in the absolute best shape ever. Like, there's people that have crazy bodies, right? But for me, it was more about the feeling that I get when I leave the gym or when I really push that next weight. I think it's really good in the mind. And I've heard this a lot from a lot of successful people that, you know what, having gym in your life is the most crucial thing that you can do. So I'm still battling with it. I'm still trying to get back into it, because I get into it and then I get so busy with work, with the businesses and stuff, and then I go back. But I think it's definitely something that you have to make a priority. And like you said, you have to make it something that it's not an option. You have to do it.
Exactly.
And honestly, when I do go to the gym, I just feel amazing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of gym as well, when I'm in the gym personally, I don't think about anything else. It's like if I've got any problems, you know, we all have problems, personal, business wise. When I'm stepping in the gym and I put my headphones on, and I'm just, you know, I'm doing my thing, I don't think about anything apart from getting that set done, or, you know, I'm thinking about the next exercise, or I'm looking at the next machine that I'm going to go to. It's just for, you know, it's really hard to like kind of empty your mind kind of thing and stop thinking. But whenever I'm in the gym, I just stop thinking. And I've done a lot of martial arts before as well. And again, that's even better than going to the gym, if I'm honest with you, because, you know, you're constantly hitting something, you're constantly punching something, you're kicking, you know, you're rolling on the floor, you know, you're with other people. But in that time frame, the 1-2 hours that you're there, you just don't think about anything apart from what you're doing in the present. And that's really hard to do, because afterwards, so that's why I recommend doing it in the morning, because once you do that in the morning and your mind, it just clicked off the whole world for like an hour. When you come back in, then you start thinking about other stuff. You become more creative, you find solutions to your problems quite easily and quicker in terms of that.
Honestly, I love that what you said, because it's so true. Like, being in business, people that have a 9 to 5, sometimes they do have to take their work home. But majority of people, when they're working like a normal job, they do their work and then they go home and then they do whatever they want to do. Whereas us, we're almost so addicted to our businesses and to our work and to our grind that we cannot physically press the off button. Like, sometimes I genuinely just want to press the off button, but I can't. My mind is either thinking about this part or this part or this part. And it doesn't stop. But I do agree with you in terms of that. In terms of gym, it's the one time where you can just completely switch off. And it's so important as well, because we can only go so much. You don't want to burn out. Sometimes you wake up and you're just like, I can't be bothered today. But you have to keep going in business. So that's interesting to hear. So to go back to the restaurant, obviously you are now at a place where the restaurant is successful. It's been successful for many years, and you've won awards now, so you're constantly growing even though you've been around for so long. What's some of the challenges that you faced, because you spoke about some of the challenges you had while you were young and your dad came here to set up the restaurant, but what's some of the challenges you faced being a grown man and actually running the business and being the person behind the business, operating the business? What's some of the challenges you faced?
I mean, one of the main challenges that I've faced, that most restaurants face, is staff. Staffing is very hard. I mean, we was mentioning with yourself that how you've changed the whole team in your place, because your vision has changed and what you want out of your staff has changed as well. And the current staff you had, they couldn't handle it, or their mindset wasn't there. That comes the same thing into a restaurant, where you've got so many different aspects of the restaurant, you've got so many different staff doing different things. It's very hard to find the right people, and once you do find them, you got to hold on to them. That's why our chefs have been with us for so long, because we find a way to hold on to them, and it's not just one-sided. It's good for them as well. We give them things they cannot get in other places, so they stay with us. And after 5-6 years, they become attached to the restaurant themselves. It's that they're the owners too. Because if something does go wrong, they genuinely try their best to sort it out, or they genuinely get upset about it. But yeah, one of the main challenges I say I faced was staffing, and the other one was timing. See, I used to sleep until 12-1 o'clock because my mindset wasn't there. As we mentioned earlier on, I used to sleep till late, and I wake up, I'll feel like I wasted the whole day. I'll feel quite shit about it. But I'll do the same thing again the next day. Like it's that's what I've been talking about, the mindset stuff. But once I got into self development, helping yourself, learning new things. I've attended a lot of seminars. I've read a lot of books, and once I got my mind right, then things started to become easier. The problems started to go, and new problems started to arise. I mean, you're always gonna have problems, regardless of what you do. But what matters is having new problems, not the same problems. Because if you're having the same problems over and over and again, then something is not right. So
you're not coming up with a solution. So
you're not
stuck in the same place.
What it is, the way I look at it is, you have to create bigger problems for yourself. It's like I shouldn't be worrying about how many customers I'm gonna get in this week. I should be worrying about how am I gonna fit those customers in. So they are both problems, but they're two different problems. If you see what I mean. It's
how you look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
And how you tackle it.
Yeah, so
that's basically.
That's it, man. It's just. Everything comes down to the mindset. I can't stress it enough with the mindset stuff, because what I know now, what I didn't know 5 years ago, that's what really made the difference. And that's when I had my shift up, from my vision, from the way I look at things, from the way I run my business. Is after I realized, what, you're looking at the things in the wrong way. Just wake up, do what you need to do, get everything done. And
so I mean, I think it's interesting because obviously Testi was your dad's vision, right? It was his vision to come to London and do this project, and I think it was quite a popular thing in your family as well. I think you mentioned previously that your family, not just your dad, but they were in the restaurant industry. So for you, now that you're doing it, you know, you're running things, and this is now, you've taken over his vision. What more do you want to achieve? You know, what keeps you going with Testi?
So with Testi, you know, I know that there's a lot of people that don't know us yet, and you know, I don't just say this because it's my restaurant, but our food is genuinely really, really nice. And I hear it from, you know, people like yourself. I hear it from a lot of people. There's people that travel an hour to get to us. There's people that come from Kent. You know, we've got customers that used to live in the area before, but now have moved to Manchester, Liverpool, and they come back when they visit London because they can't get the same taste anywhere else. And what keeps me going is I want everyone to know, you know, I'm open to feedback, but I want everybody to try it first. I want people to come in, try it, you know, see how it is. So that's what keeps me going. It's because I know the potential of the restaurants. I know how many restaurants there are. You know, I know what our competitors are doing. You know, we're not even in competition with anyone. You know, we're just doing our own thing. Nobody's coming close to us because we're in a completely different level. You know, we're not fighting for customers here. We're just constantly doing our own thing, and we focus on us, which is why it's consistent, because we don't go and say, you know what's that restaurant doing? What's this restaurant doing? Or why am I not busy? Why has he got... You know, we focus on us, and that's why it's consistent. And what drives me forward is the name Testi. I want to get it out there. Everyone needs to know, because the food is really, really nice, and people need to come and see it for themselves.
I think honestly, like, again, you know, I'm not just saying this. I love Turkish food. You know, funnily enough, a lot of people think I'm Turkish. I'm not Turkish. I wouldn't mind being Turkish, but I'm not Turkish. You know, and I genuinely have always loved Turkish food. I think it goes back to my dad, actually, because when I was growing up, we always used to try different foods. And Turkish food was one of them. You know, he's loved it. I've always loved it. And so because of that, I've been blessed to kind of go to so many restaurants. And then when I grew up myself, I just fell in love with going out, and I used to love eating out and trying new places. And, you know, genuinely, the taste that you get at Testi really is different. Now, I don't know why, you know, you're telling me obviously it's because it's to do with the fresh, you know, ingredients and all that kind of stuff. And then it makes me think, well, you know, what are these other places using? Not to say that they taste bad, but they don't actually have that same taste.
I mean, it's not just with the freshness of, obviously that's like 70% of the puzzle, you know. It has to be fresh, you know. You can't serve gone off food to people, you know what I mean? But what you're touching on there about what are these other people not doing, or what restaurants not doing, it's the products that we use. So, you know, you get a lot of different spices. We buy each of our spices from all different places, and they get transported from Turkey to here.
Wow.
But just because they got transported from Turkey to here, that doesn't mean they're good, or it's not at the standard that we want. So whereas what most people do is they order all of their bits from one place, or, you know, a couple of places. But we go out and we buy all of our things from different places, because someone's got a, you know, better pepper, one's got a better tomato, everyone's got different things, and we get the best of everything for us. See, our ingredients might not work with other people's restaurant because of their style and the way they serve, but it works with us, and we always maintain what we get. So we always go to the same suppliers. We work closely with all of our suppliers, you know, and that makes a lot of difference. And coming back to the subject as well, what are they not doing, is how many times you go into a restaurant and the owners are actually working there, or how many times do you go into a restaurant and the owners are training their own staff. You know, we do that, and that's something I picked up from my father when he was training me, and it's just something that I will bring on, you know, to the chefs, to my children as well, because that's what really makes a difference. You know, my dad, he's got 50 years experience in this game. You know, you're not going to get a chef that's been doing it for 20 years. He's not going to do it better than him. And everybody has their own style. So my chef might not be good at another restaurant because it doesn't suit his style. And the reason why he's super good at our place is because we've taught him our style. You know, we've nagged it into his head. You have to do this right. You have to do it like this. You have to put the salt in, then you have to put the pepper in, then, or you put this X amount, you put that X amount. So that comes down to me and my father, is the way we train our staff, and we make sure that nothing goes out to the customers until that staff is properly trained.
You know, one of the dishes that Because, you know, everything on the menu, I've tried so many things on the menu. I actually did one of my birthdays there. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
And my family loved it. They actually never heard of it either, but they loved it, absolutely loved it. And obviously the whole extra thing that you did, you know, the fruit platter that, you know, you don't get anywhere.
No,
it's always about the things about going above and beyond. But the one thing that really, I genuinely cannot find it anywhere to that taste is the esme salad.
Esme, yeah,
so
it's true.
what, like, it's even some dishes, like you guys are just going above and beyond.
It's just our style, Humza, you know. It's the way we do things. So where my dad comes from, where I come from in the south side of Turkey, is a lot of, you know, kebab orientated city, and nearly half of the people in that city are kebab owners. You know, they've got some sort of fingers in the hospitality industry, in sort of, you know, restaurants and kebab styles. So what he done was he obviously put all of his experience and knowledge together, and he, you know, put all down on the menu 15 years ago. And from then we've just carried on improving but not ruining it. So we wasn't adding stuff to make it even worse. We were just changing bits of bobs to make it even better. And because we're always in the restaurant ourselves and it's the food that we eat, we know what it's supposed to taste like. And if it doesn't taste like what we want it to, the customer wouldn't get that. It wouldn't go to their table. I mean, it wouldn't even be prepped because the chef will be trained. You know, we throw away so many stuff just to train people. You know, we throw it away because he needs to learn that if this guy, he does this wrong to a customer, then that customer may not return, or he may not like, or he might get the wrong impression of the restaurant, which does happen sometimes. You know, you can't control everything. You know, things do go bad sometimes, but it's about making up for it. So,
I mean, that's obviously in terms of the restaurant. What would you say is for you? Because I think, I mean, I try to ask this all the time, right? Because there's so many different people that will probably watch this, you know. And I think one group of people that will watch this is individuals who want to get involved in hospitality. They probably don't really understand how difficult it is. They probably look at the glitz and glamour and think, you know what, running a restaurant comes with so many perks and all this kind of stuff. But for anyone that is thinking of getting into hospitality or starting their own restaurant or whatever it may be, what are some of the things you would advise them?
Well, my first advice is you have to give up 15 hours of your day. You know, if you're not ready to do that, then don't bother at all, because especially at the start, when you can't afford to get staff and, you know, when you can't afford certain systems because you're just starting up, you're going to be doing it yourself, you know. But obviously later on, once you set up and running, you bring the staff in and you're a bit more relaxed. But, you know, give up 13, 14, 15 hours of your day just to focus on your business. You know, you're going to be doing your socials yourself. You're going to be cooking, bringing the customers, probably taking the payments yourself. You'll do all yourself unless you got a big pot of cash to start with. But even then, it's actually better in a way where you don't have that much money to start with, because if you did, then you will never learn. But when you start off small, you learn. You know, you learn as you go on, which is what I've done. You know, I've basically been an apprentice at my restaurant for 7-8 years just to learn things. And if I hadn't done that, the restaurant wouldn't be at the level it's running now.
Because people probably think you have it easy, you know. Obviously, your dad went through challenges, and you know, he kind of went bankrupt and all that kind of stuff. But when he did come here, he did start making money. Things did start turning out well. And when you grew up, you know, things started getting a little bit better. And yet, you're still so grounded. You still have such a good mindset. You know, a lot of people that think, you know, if you've got a restaurant, you just come for money, and yet you're still just out there grinding, which is literally one of the things I love. So what would you say in terms of, obviously that's advice for people that want to start in hospitality, what would you say is advice for just young people in business in general? Because I think I would call it a disease, one of the diseases we have in our generation is we just want things straight away. You know, we don't want to wait. And you know what, to be honest, sometimes myself included, you know, sometimes I get impatient. Sometimes I'm like, I didn't want this to go that way, I wanted it to go that way. And it's only down the line that you realize, okay, that happened for a reason. But what would you say is one advice that you would strongly recommend for someone young trying to get into business? Not necessarily hospitality, but just business in general.
I mean, one advice I'll give is there will never be a perfect time to start. You know, you can come up with excuses, you know, the weather's not nice today, or I haven't had this today, or I'm gonna wait until I'm a certain age, or anything. There's always excuses. There's always things that will hold you back. But the best thing to do is just to start with whatever you want to do and learn along the way. Obviously, pick up as much as knowledge you can before you go ahead and do what you want to do. But don't wait for that perfect moment, because it will never come. And what people do is they tend to waste years. They waste their whole life trying to wait for that perfect moment, but it never comes. And they turn around, they 40, 50 years old, which is not an old age, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But they feel like they wasted their whole lifetime waiting for this opportunity, and now they don't want to take it on because they think it's too late. So the best thing that I'll say is just go ahead with it. Pick up as much information as you can. We live in an era where everything is done online. You just type into Google and you will find the answer to your question half the time. So just pick up as much knowledge as you can, and have that burning desire in you to want to do something, something better. Set your goals, write your goals down on the paper, give yourself a time frame, 1 year, 2 years, 6 months, whatever you want it to be. And what I do, which helps me a lot, is what I suggest everybody does out there, is to do weekly tracking. I do this every night actually. I have a to-do list the next day, things that I've got to do, and if there's anything that I haven't done on today, on this day, I will move that on to the next day, and I'll put that priority. So they're the first things I'll be doing. Is like, if I didn't go gym today, I will put that first on the list. I can't do nothing until this is done. Or it's simple stuff like just filling out a form. Filling out a form. If I haven't done it today, I'll make sure that's the number one thing I do tomorrow to make sure it gets done. Because what we tend to do, I do myself as well, I tend to look at the list and do the things that I want to do, and leave out the things that I don't want to do. But once I do that, then I realize what, you're going to do anyway the next day. So just get on with it. So yeah, set yourself targets. Have weekly tracking reports. Write the things you got to do daily, and just keep on supervise yourself. Keep on top of things, because once you don't have to report to anyone, especially when you got your own business, you get lazy, and to prevent that is you have to report to yourself. You have to tell yourself, why haven't you done this?
Definitely. Honestly, you couldn't have said it better, because when I first started the whole marketing stuff, I was so passionate about what I was doing, and I think that's another thing I would recommend, is you should definitely be passionate about what you do. But I was young, I was excited, and I was working hard and all that kind of stuff. And then over time, I started to think, okay, cool. Do I really need to wake up at 6, 7 o'clock? Do I really need to? I could wake up at 11 o'clock. I can then go to the office, and then I can do what I want. That was wrong. That was the wrong mindset, because you can do it, but you won't achieve the goals that you want to do then, And on top of that, you do become lazy, and you also then don't achieve the to-do list, because if you're not looking at the to-do list, and you're just getting on with your day as it goes along, you have no structure. And I think that's something that you have to do if you really want to be successful. If you really want to be in business, you have to have self-discipline. There's nothing more important than that, no matter what industry it is. And I think hospitality, actually, you have to be disciplined a lot, because you have to make sure that, okay, cool, if we've had a bad day, we start fresh the next day. And if we've had a bad review, okay, cool, we start again, and we make sure that that review gets responded to, and customers are getting so that, I think that's probably the key thing I would say for young people. Other than that, for me, in terms of young people, I think as well, instant gratification doesn't happen. They just want things straight away. They have to understand the patience. You've probably been doing this a while. You said you was doing it since 11 years old. You were working in a restaurant, and that 11 years, 11, 12 years, however long you were there, you learnt these little things every single day that led you to where you are now. But people don't really realize that. They don't see the behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, what people think on the outside is, he just took over a restaurant from his dad. But yeah, that may be the case. But if that was to be the case, then I couldn't run it, because I wouldn't know what I'm doing. But yeah, people are too quick to judge, but it's never bothered me. I've had it before. I've been in the restaurant since a young age. I've been running the restaurant when I was 18, 19. When I was 17, I had people working for me that was more than twice my age. And once you have control over someone that's double your age, and when you're still a teenager, they kind of it kind of hurts them a little bit, if you see what I mean. You know, they can't really take it that I am the owner of the place and I'm doing what I'm doing. But you know, we was having a chat upstairs about the age thing, where, you know, people never ask me for my age. They don't. I mean, even then, because I looked young, you know, when I was 17, I did look quite young. And once I showed them the knowledge that I got, that kind of puts people in their place. So once you show that you can do something, or you've got the knowledge behind it to back you up, age doesn't really matter. I mean, that's the same thing with young people. If they want to start out and they're waiting until they're, you know, in their 20s or in their 30s, age doesn't matter. As long as you do your homework and you've got the knowledge behind you to back it up, age doesn't matter at all. The fact that you're young is even better for you, because then you can achieve things quicker and faster than other people, you know. I'm at the mindset where the people that I connect with are 40, 50 years old. You know, that doesn't mean that I'm old. It's just that where I am in my life is the way I see things is different to the way most people my age think, or most people around my age think. And that comes down to the self-development and the vision that I have, you know, towards the rest of the world. And with people's judgments, I really couldn't care less, because I still got to carry on doing what I'm doing, regardless of what they say, good or bad.
Definitely. You know, it's funny because we spoke about how amazing it was to work with your dad and learn all the stuff that you did, and, you know, you was happy to do it and you enjoyed it, and you still do to this day. What's your advice on people that are thinking about setting up a family business? Because especially in the hospitality industry, it's not easy, you know. You have fights with your family, you see the worst of them. And so what's your advice in making sure that you guys have a peaceful unit and get to where you have, you know,
the thing is, with me and my father, is we get into a lot of conflict even today, because as I mentioned earlier on, the way I run things is a little bit different to the way he wants to run things, and that comes down to his mindset and his vision. So where he's come from, he's achieved massive amount of success, you know, from his days. And obviously where I've come from is a bit slightly higher, so my vision is different towards him. And what keeps us in the loop and that keeps us going, you know, in a peaceful manner, is he understands. You know, he thinks, you know what, I think like this, but I can see what he's saying. Or it's the same with me. There's some things that I'm wrong with, which I think I'm right, but then I sit down for a minute and I just think in what he says, and I say, you know what, he's got a point there, you know, he might be right. So it's about listening to each other and, you know, work finding a way in the middle where you both agree, because you're going to have arguments, you're going to have conflicts, especially if it's like a father and son, where there's a massive age gap, there's a massive generation gap, you know, there's massive technology gap in the middle. There's so many things in the middle between me and my father, but what keeps us together is we listen to each other. You know, he wouldn't turn around and say, you know what, you're only my son, why am I going to listen to you? He will sink in what I say, and if what I'm saying does fit in, if what I'm saying is right, he will agree on it after he's disagreed on it. And that's the same with me, you know. I will agree on something that he says afterwards, once I sit down and genuinely think about it. Or he will have to explain his point of view to me, and I'll have to do the same, because I don't understand it or he doesn't understand it. So we kind of get into detail of, you know what, I think we should do this like this because of X, Y, and Z, and he will do the same with me. So yeah, the best advice I can give on that is you have to communicate. You know, there's no point of you going home and then complaining to other people or your other family members about, you know, your brother, your sister, your mum, your dad, or whatever it is. You rather just speak to them and you know, sort it out and have good communication skills, because when it comes to business, you kind of have to take out the family thing out. You know, you're not going to say, oh, you're my brother, you can't do that. No, it's business. You know, you at the end of the day, whenever we do come into a conflict like that, which doesn't happen often now, is we look at it as, how is it going to benefit the business? You know, is what I'm saying going to benefit the business, or are we going to do what I'm saying because I like the idea? You know, so you have to think about how it's going to benefit the business, because that's the reason you're there.
I think also it's a little bit of self-awareness, because I think you and your dad, you get along really well. Like, I've seen how you guys work together, and it's amazing. It's literally inspiring. But some parents, you know, they don't want to listen to their kids, and they won't listen to their kids. So I think if you are thinking of setting up a family business, be sure to definitely understand, you know, what it's like in your household, the relationship that you have with your parents, because it can be a beautiful thing sharing success with your family. But it can also be such a damaging thing if you don't achieve that success, or if your parents or the relationship that you have isn't what you want it to be. So definitely think about that. So Huseyin, Testi obviously is continuously growing. What's coming up next for the restaurant? Anything exciting?
Yeah, we've got a massive refurbishment up on the way. We should be closing down in July the 25th for about a month, and we're going to come back with, the interior is going to change. We're going to do little tweaks on our menu, but the whole restaurant is going to get a modernizing in a way where it's a retro classic look. And I've seen the pictures, and soon our pictures will be going up on our Instagram, so our customers can have a look, and it's going to be really, really nice. So there is big things happening for Testi at the minute, and especially after we won the award, we've got a lot of recognition for that. We're getting a lot of new customers in, and I want to give something back to the business. I want to in a way treat the business, look after it. We've been there for 15-20 years. We've had little refurbs there and there, but we haven't had a major work taking place, and that's what we're going to do in the upcoming months.
I think that's quite exciting to hear because I've been to that restaurant many times. One thing I love about it has got that traditional feel, but I think to then get the same sort of service, same sort of food with a completely different feel is going to be fun,
Yeah, no, definitely.
So definitely I advise you guys to head down to Testi, see what it's like before the refurb, because that's a nice little place to be. And then after, obviously, I'm sure it's going to be all nice and fresh and proper, which is going to be exciting. I'm hoping I'm on the opening list,
Yeah,
for when
definitely.
you guys reopen. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. So Huseyin, for people that do want to follow the journey of the restaurant or be updated, what's the best way for them to keep in touch?
They can tune in on our Instagram. It's Testi Restaurant. It's TSTI Restaurant. If anybody does have any questions regarding anything that I've said today, they're more than welcome to just send me a DM, and I'll get back to it as soon as I can. Other than that, you can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Facebook. You can go have a look at our reviews online. If you really know what our customers think, check our Google reviews, check our TripAdvisor reviews, because they're all there, and that comes from real people. There is bad reviews on there as well, don't get me wrong, but it just comes down to the thing where you can't please everyone, and what am I going to do next to make sure this doesn't happen again? So just do a research about us. Go online, type our name in, and you will see everything on there.
Definitely. So guys, make sure you do head down to the restaurant, and you also follow them on Instagram. Let them know that you've come from the podcast to share the love as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and on YouTube as well.